Hi guys, and we're back again. This time we're going to be learning about angles, so a little bit of geometry to help you understand what to do when it comes to using angles and something called a protractor. I'm sure you've all seen that before. Okay, so we'll be working with the protractor, we'll be working with angles. Okay, alright, so let's just go through a couple of things about angles and what we're looking at, because if you don't understand angles, geometry is going to be really hard, and it isn't actually that difficult. Okay, so we're going to try and make it as simple as possible so that you can understand it and that you can do well in your class tests and assessments. Okay, so there are 6 types of angles that we look at. Okay, I'm just going to bring this up a bit because there's a couple of pictures at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to look at something called an acute angle, an obtuse angle, a right angle, a straight angle, a reflex angle, and something called a revolution. So you need to know these 6 angles because they are going to help you later on when it comes to high school maths. Okay, so an acute angle is an angle that is smaller than 90. Now I always used to call it in class when I was still teaching that it's a very cute little angle. Okay, so it's small, it's tiny, it's smaller than 90 degrees, and this is what an acute angle looks like. It's a very small little angle. Okay, so that is smaller than 90 degrees. Then you get something called an obtuse angle, and an obtuse angle is bigger than 90 degrees but smaller than 180. So if you look here, just below that, this is a 90-degree angle. Okay, so I'm just putting a little square there because that obviously tells us that it's a 90-degree angle. And can you see that this one is definitely bigger than this? Okay, so you can see the difference between these two. This one's smaller than 90, so it has to be smaller than a right angle. And this one is something called an obtuse angle, so it's bigger than 90, but it's not as big as a straight line. So it's sort of like this angle belongs between these two. Okay, so that is something. I always use asterisks and obliques as an example. I'm not sure if you're aware of who they are. I think the younger generation aren't that aware of asterisks and obliques, but go and Google them and you'll see. Go and Google a guy named Obliques. I'm going to put his name here. I'll try to see if I can even find a picture for you later, but there's a guy named Obliques, and he is quite a big guy, and that's how I always used to try and remember that he's obtuse, because if you look, you've got the OB, and there, I've always got funny ways of remembering things, but if that will work and it helps you to remember, well, then we're going to do it. Okay, so you've got obliques, and then you've got acute. So obliques for obtuse, and obviously acute is going to be a small one, and then your right angle is going to be your 90 degrees. Okay, then this one makes a lot of sense. This is a straight angle. It's exactly 180. I just want to show you. So if I'm just going to put a circle, a little dot here in the middle. If I position my protractor nicely in the middle, you'll see that it starts on one end, goes all the way to the other, and that is a perfectly 180 degree angle. Okay, so this one is in exactly 180. Okay, then we're going to go into a reflex angle, and a reflex angle is bigger than 180 but smaller than 360. Now the problem is we have got a protractor that only goes up to 180. It doesn't go up to 360. So to measure a reflex angle becomes quite challenging if you're only using this. But I'm going to show you a little trick. Okay, and most teachers know this trick and they all teach this to you in class, but sometimes we forget. Okay, if I can't measure, I mean, remember, you can turn your whole page around. If you want to turn your page around to measure an angle, you are more than welcome to. Okay, no one's stopping you. Your page is not glued down. But what I want to show you is that in order to measure this angle, so we're looking at this whole angle. So I'm going to use some color here to kind of give you a feel as to what we're looking at. We're looking at that whole angle over there. So that whole thing there is what we are trying to find. Okay, we're not trying to find anything else here. We were looking at that, there's that angle, etc. But we're looking for this outside angle. Okay, now just a quick one before we do work that out. I just want you to look at this one. This is a revolution, and it's a full 360 degrees. If I put a little arrow here, it's gone all the way around to 360 degrees. Now this one looks very similar, but it just hasn't got that far. It hasn't gotten to 360. So the trick is, let's measure this angle, this little angle over here. So let's measure this thing. And then do you agree that if I measure that and I take it away from 360, that I'm actually going to get my reflex angle? So that's how you work out a reflex angle. So let's just go and have a look at it. So you'll see we're going to put that over there and we're going to look carefully. So remember, when you're using a protractor, you put it on the line that you're working with. Okay, so it's nice and straight. You've got to be quite careful with it. Okay, and you put your line over there, the little middle part there. And because the line was on this side, we're going to start with a 0 over here. And we're going to go all the way to where this one meets, and that's at 130 degrees. So this one, oh, I'm moving everything today. This one is 130 degrees. But have I actually worked out this angle? Not yet. So how you work it out is you take 360 degrees, you minus 130, and you're going to get 230 degrees. And that is your final answer for your reflex angle. So whenever you get this big, massive angle that goes right over a straight angle, you know you're dealing with a reflex. And then in order to find it, work out the smaller piece using your protractor and then minus it from 360. Okay, so here's a couple of pictures at the bottom here. This is your acute angle, less than 90. Does look quite cute, I must say. Then you've got your right angle, which is this one over here. It's got a nice little square in it. Your obtuse angle, bigger than 90 but smaller than 180, sorry. Then you've got straight angle, which is exactly 180 degrees. You've got a reflex, which is bigger than 180, but remember it's still smaller than 360. And then here we've got the last one, which is a complete revolution, and that is exactly 360 degrees. Okay, so now we're going to do something where we've got a couple of activities to do. And, you know, teachers all ask questions very differently. So I try and, in my lessons, and especially now with my YouTube lessons, to try and give you an idea or lots of different ways of asking about angles and other topics. So for the top one, you'll notice that I've asked you to classify the angles below. So that means you need to classify it according to it being an acute angle, obtuse, straight, right angle, reflex, and a revolution. Okay, but you need to be able to look at them and tell me what each one is. So the idea is, most of the time we're always given pictures like this. And we said, okay, I can see that's acute, that's an obtuse, that's acute, and we know how to do that. But when we're just given the numbers and the degrees, we actually don't really always think about it carefully, and we just sometimes write other stuff. So be careful with these, think about them. I always start off with maybe just doing the acute ones first. So I know that acute is anything under 90 degrees. So let's look for all the ones under 90, and I can see that one's an acute angle. And that's not, let's see, okay, there's an acute angle there, oh, and there's one more. Okay, and now we can start with the other ones. If there's any ones that you can see that you can do quickly, then do them. Like I know that 90 degrees is a right angle. Okay, I know 180 is a straight angle, and I know that 360 is a revolution. So those are my definites. I know those for sure. Now we're going to tell the difference between an obtuse angle and a reflex angle. Okay, so remember we said an obtuse angle is anything between 90 and 180 degrees. So this one is 91. And I had a question the other day from one of the kids that I teach, and she said, but 91 is so close to 90, isn't that also going to be a right angle? And the answer is no, it's just over 90 degrees, so it can't be. This one is actually an obtuse angle. Okay, and then if you look at any of the others, 130 is also obtuse because that comes in between 90 and 180, and this one as well, 176 is smaller than 180, so we'll write obtuse here. And then the last two, I'm just guessing, but I'm sure they are reflex, but let's just check them first. Reflex is anything bigger than 180 and smaller than 360. And both of these fit that criteria. So we're going to call those two both reflex angles. So it's not too difficult. You just got to try and remember what each one is and the measurements of each one, especially if you don't have a picture in front of you. Okay. Or what you can do is, if you really want to, is to try and use your protractor and say, okay, well, where's 27 degrees? Okay, that's quite a small little angle. You could do that, but it takes a bit of time. So preferably, rather use your knowledge about what you know about your angles and the different sizes. Okay, let's go on to measuring angles, and I want to show you how to do it because a lot of children are struggling to use this thing called a protractor. The reason why is because if you look carefully, I'm just going to put a white piece of paper behind it just so you can see it properly. What you will notice is that there's a 0 all the way up to 180 on the outside. But then you'll also notice that there's a 0 on the inside going on to the other side. So what's happening is children are very confused and they don't know which side to look from. So sometimes they're measuring and they're on the right track, but they just measure the wrong side. So they know exactly which angle they're looking at. They've got it all set up beautifully. And instead of measuring from this side, they measure from this side and they get the small angle when it should have been a big, like obtuse angle. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I do and that I used to teach the kids that when I was still teaching at school. What I do is, and I mean, some teachers don't like color, but if it helps you, I think you should ask them very nicely if you can use it. So I'm going to use, let's just use this color today, I've already one. And let's start with, say for example, number 2. Okay, so I know that I'm going to use this line to put my protractor on. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, one thing I'd like you to get used to doing is, if your lines are very short, just extend them. Okay, don't worry if you go over into any writing. It's just a line, nothing's going to happen. Okay, and I'm going to do number 3 as well because that's the next one that I'll do. Okay, and just extend your lines just so you can see where they're going to, because if you're using your protractor, you'll notice that your lines only go halfway and then I can't actually see where it's going to. Okay, so I've got this light in the middle here and it's kind of reflecting off this, but anyway. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's just move it up so the light doesn't reflect into it. You are going to position your protractor onto the line. Okay, notice that this T part, okay, I always call it the T, it's your center part, is on the corner of your angle. And then can you see I've got this blue line? So remember I highlighted my line. I'm starting from this side, which means I need to start from 0. I can't start at 180, that's just silly. Okay, so we're going to start at 0, which means I'm going to use the inside lines, or the inside angles and the numbers. Okay, and remember this outside is just like a curved ruler. Okay, so it goes up in tens. So it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then in between each of the tens, there's like little markings. And those are your markings to show you that it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then the long one's 5. Just like it is on your ruler. If you take a look at your ruler, you'll see your ruler's got exactly the same thing. Okay, you've got up to 5 and then you've got 10. Okay, so let's just carry on here. So we know we got here. We're going to go all the way to this side over here. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see that you've got 120. Okay, and we're just going to count. So there's 120, so it's 121, 122, 123, 124. So this angle here is 124 degrees. Okay, because I measured from this side all the way around. We're going to do the same for this one. Now, I'm not going to do all of them because you're going to be here for days if we do that, okay? You can do them if you buy the pack. So we're going to do exactly the same for this one. Position it nicely. You'll see I've already extended my line. I actually did not extend my line long enough, so we're just going to redo that because we can. Okay, and then we carry on. Okay, so we're going to do that, put it on. Again, I'm starting on this side, and we're going to go all the way to where my line is there. So let's just see where the closest number was. Remember, we're starting with the inside one. We've got 0 all the way to 60. So there's my 60. There's 65. So it's 66, 67. So this one must be, so I'm pushing everything around, 67 degrees. Okay. All right, moving down, just want to do one on the side here so that you can see I'm not always using the right hand side. Let's just do, let's do this little one here, number 1. Okay, so I'm just going to extend my line out a bit as well. And this time we're going to start on this line. Okay, so I know it's not perfectly straight, but you still got the black line to guide you. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to position it like that. Okay, and we're going to start from this side now, because my blue line's on this side, which means I start from the 0 on the left hand side. So we're going to go left, and we're going to go all the way. We know it gets to 20. It's not yet at 30, so let's just count how much it is. So it's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and that is a 24-degree angle. Now you need to be very careful with this. You need to work carefully and as accurately as you can. You know, sometimes teachers might give you a 1 degree chance on either side, depending on the thickness of the lines, because sometimes if a line is very thick, it might go in between 2 of the lines of your protractor. But generally, your lines are thin enough for you to have an exact answer of, say, 67 or say 124. So just be careful. Try and be as accurate. Sometimes we work way too quickly. We put it down, we work it out to say, oh, okay, it looks like, okay, whatever. So let's say 125. But if I actually work it out, and I push it, it's actually about 127. So if you think about it, that 2 degrees makes a big difference. So do it slowly, do it carefully, and you must try and get them right. Okay, all right, so that is that part. Okay, and this follows on with this. So here are your answers. This is where you're going to write your answers for this section over here. Okay, we're just going to do 2 of these ones, and this is going to show you how to construct angles. Okay, so what you need is you need a protractor and you need a ruler, which I have misplaced. No, here it is. Okay, so we need the 2 things. We need a ruler and we need a protractor. And when it says construct the following angles, it means you have to draw them. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to draw a line. Okay, just one little line. Nothing hectic. Don't go too far across, because else you're not going to have enough space. Be careful with this that you don't make them too long, because else your angle's going to be sitting in the middle here somewhere. So just use the space that you're given. Use about half of it. Draw a line. And what I like to do is just put a little dot. Okay, and you're going to see why I put a little dot there. It's not a massive dot that gets in the way. It's just so that I can remember where to place my line or my protractor. Okay, so we need to construct an angle of 120. Okay, so I know that I'm going to have an angle of 120 degrees. So you can go, we're going to start this side, because remember I drew my line on this side. We're going to go all the way to 120, go to 120, put a dot. Okay, and this is where the other little dot helps you. You are going to play dot to dot like you used to when you were at school in grade 1. Okay, we are going to join the dots with a ruler, not freehand, and that is your 120-degree angle. Okay, now what some kids unfortunately would sometimes do, and if you are one of them, then don't stress. That's why we are doing this. We want to fix it and make sure you can get it right. Some kids would start with this side and they'd go up to 120, and then you'd have this angle and they'd put it over here instead. You know that 120 is an obtuse angle, so you need to make sure that your angle is bigger than 90. Okay, you need to make sure about that. Okay, so that's your 120-degree one. Now let's work out your 230 degrees. Okay, so we're going to draw a line. Okay, so we're going to draw another line. I'm just going to use the protractor this time. And now we've got this line. I've got my protractor out. I want to try and work it out. Okay, but I can only get to 180. I need to get to 230, and that's a problem. Okay, so we can make it not a problem. We are going to take 360 degrees, as I showed you earlier. We're going to minus 230, and we are going to get 130 degrees as an answer. Okay, so again, using some calculations, it's going to help us. And we are going to do exactly the same thing. Now, the only problem with this is it's going to land up, my dot's going to land up inside here, but it doesn't matter. Remember, I drew my line on this side. So we're going to go all the way from there, all the way to 130, put a dot. Okay, so I'm going to put a dot right on my 2 there. Okay, I can still see it. Take your ruler and you can join dot to dot. So I'm not going to join the dots right to the end. I'm just going to sort of go halfway just so it doesn't go into my thing. And again, this is 130 degrees. But was that what they asked for? Nope. They wanted you to show a 230 degree angle. And that is it. Okay. For 95 degrees and 25 degrees, I'm sure you can do those yourself as well. Just again, let me just do this one. The reason I tell you that I want you to do this one is because sometimes what children are doing is they are seeing this as 90 degrees here and going 95 there. But in the meantime, we started on this side. So we need to go from 0 to 90 and then another 5. So that is actually what your line should look like, your angle, sorry, should look like. And that is a 95 degree angle. And you know that is right because obviously it's bigger than a right angle. Okay, you know it's bigger than 90, it has to be bigger than a right angle. Okay, and that is it for angles. I do hope that you understood everything. If you got any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or send me a direct message and I will get back to you. Thanks. Bye.